Another finding that may show up as part of Database Health Monitor and our regular checking there is the max server memory setting not being set. Now, what this does is it says SQL Server is only allowed to take up so much memory. Now, usually I like to set that somewhere around 90 to 95%, depending on how much other things are running on your SQL Server. Let's say your server is running SQL Server and a mail server and it's a file server and it's running IIS and a bunch of stuff like that. Well, you may want to give SQL Server a much smaller percentage or amount of memory that it can use. If you're running SQL Server and it's a dedicated SQL Server, maybe we give it 95%. But it's really something you have to set and monitor over time and see what happens. An example of a scenario that went bad is my desktop computer that I work on every day. I have 2 SQL Server instances running on it. I never set max server memory on it because it's a test server. I didn't really care about it, and I've got 64 gigs of RAM. Well, the other night, some test job went a little bit wild and chewed up all that memory. And the next morning, I sat down on my computer, started working, had a sip of coffee, and realized that Outlook had crashed on me. And then Chrome was crashing on me. And every application I tried to run, Word, Excel, everything was crashing on me. And finally, I noticed one of the messages, it crashed because it said it was out of memory. I thought, gee, 64 gigs on my desktop here. How could it be out of memory? I looked, and one of my SQL Server processes had used up all of the available memory because I had not set that max server memory setting. So if you have multiple instances running on your SQL Server, you want to make sure that the total of all of the memory allocated for those instances does not exceed the limit that you're going for. Whether it's 90%, maybe you give half of that 90% to one instance and half to the other, or maybe you split it up differently. One test server I have has 17 SQL Server instances running on it. In that case, well, we can only give each SQL Server instance about 5% of the memory because there's so many instances running on that server. Now, that's a test server, not recommended ever doing that for a production environment, but it kind of shows the point. Use the SQL Server max server memory setting and get it set on your SQL Server so that you don't run out of memory and have more serious issues.